Hey guys, tonight we journey back, way back, to a calm summer evening in ancient Athens. The sun is just beginning its slow descent behind the marble spine of the Acropolis, painting the city in amber and honey. The air is thick with the soft rustle of olive branches stirred by a warm breeze that smells faintly of figs, dust and distant firewood. You're standing on a rooftop that's slightly too hot underfoot, and in the far distance, the Saronic Gulf glimmers like it's trying to show off. You've got a good view of the sprawling rooftops below, flat clay tiles arranged in neat little rectangles, like a giant has been playing with house-shaped dominoes. Somewhere, a goat lets out a moan so tragic, it probably deserves its own play at the theatre of Dionysus. Let's be real. You probably wouldn't survive this era without a bath, antibiotics, or a decent Wi-Fi signal. Between the leaded water pipes, the sketchy sanitation, and the constant political backstabbing, literal and metaphorical, it was not exactly a Pinterest-worthy lifestyle. But tonight, that doesn't matter. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step down from the rooftop and into the narrow street, the hem of your linen chiton catching just slightly on the sun-dried stones. The day's heat still radiates from the walls, like the city is slowly exhaling. The Acropolis looms above, golden and smug, holding its crown of temples against a soft violet sky. Children's voices echo as they're reluctantly herded home, clutching toy chariots and licking honey from their fingers. A few older men lean against the columns of a small stoa, arguing half-heartedly about grain prices or whether Pythagoras was full of it. You nod at them. They nod back. Or maybe they're nodding off. It's hard to tell. A baker's stall still emits a final puff of yeast-sweet warmth. A stack of flatbread cools in a woven basket, and the scent is so good it nearly convinces you to go full Dionysian and eat it without asking. Instead you press on, sandals slapping softly in rhythm with the slow heart of the city. As you pass a group of girls returning from the well, one of them giggles at something whispered and drops a clay jug, which thankfully only cracks at the base. They laugh like breaking pots is the most exciting thing that's happened all day, which frankly it might be. The agora, Athens' bustling heart during daylight, is now gently deflating. Merchants pack their wares. A donkey sneezes. Someone's dropped an amphora of olives, and it's rolling in slow circles like it's trying to find meaning. One old woman lingers at a stall, haggling for dried figs with the intensity of a courtroom drama. You silently cheer her on. She wins. She always does. From somewhere near the Anakian temple, a flute begins to play, soft and sweet, its melody drifting like silk over the rooftops. A low cloud of smoke curls from a brazier, and it smells like cinnamon bark and burning thyme. Probably someone's dinner, or a small exorcism. It's hard to be sure. You make your way past a modest house with a courtyard just barely visible through an open gate. Inside, a father and daughter sit cross-legged, threading beads onto a string. He's pretending not to help, but his fingers twitch every time she fumbles. Their clay lamp flickers, casting golden shadows against the whitewashed wall, making their movements look like gentle echoes. A long-legged cat yawns from the roof above and follows your steps for a while, tail twitching with judgmental flair. Eventually, it vanishes into the night like some small furry deity off to inspect another mortal. Your steps slow as you pass a cluster of statues, worn and watchful. Athena's gaze feels sharper in the dimming light. Maybe it's the shadow play, or maybe you're just projecting. She's carved in full armour, spear outstretched like she's daring you to break curfew. Mainstream historical fact. This late in the 5th century BCE, Athens is at the height of its power, its architecture gleaming, its democracy loud and messy, its philosophers insufferably opinionated. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believe that owl calls at dusk are omens from the goddess herself. Good ones if the owl hoots 3 times. Bad ones if it poops near your sandals. Historians still argue whether the city's golden age felt golden to the people living it, or if it was just a prettier kind of stress. As you walk, you spot a young couple sneaking kisses behind a fig tree. A voice calls out, "We can see you," and the couple vanishes into the alley like startled deer, probably a nosy uncle, possibly the god Hermes in disguise. Athens is weird like that. You turn a corner and find yourself on a quieter street, the kind with cracked mosaics and laundry hanging like limp sails. A faint lull of chanting comes from an upstairs window, some family saying their evening thanks to Hestia, goddess of hearth and home. You pause to listen. The words don't matter. The tone is enough. Above, the stars are creeping in. A few constellations are already visible. Orion's belt, though he's half sunk behind a roof, like a celebrity avoiding attention. A breeze picks up, and the smells change. Grilled fish, laurel smoke, maybe a touch of donkey. You know, city smells. You lean against a low wall to rest. Somewhere nearby, someone plays a lyre, awkwardly, sincerely, and just out of tune enough to make you smile. A man curses in verse as he trips over a basket. A woman laughs, like she's trying not to. Athens is winding down, but it never really sleeps. Isolbai just shifts into something softer, a quieter pulse beneath the stone. And as your eyes close for just a moment, you swear you can hear the faintest whisper of a story waiting to be told. The street narrows as you move deeper into the neighbourhood. The stone pathway beneath your sandals is still warm from the day's sun, though the heat now feels more like a quiet memory than a presence. Lanterns begin to flicker to life, simple oil lamps perched in niches or set carefully outside doorways. They glow in buttery halos, casting wobbly light across the whitewashed walls and forming a constellation of domestic calm. You pass a home where the scent of lentil stew drifts lazily through a half-open wooden door. A mother stands in silhouette, scooping dinner into shallow clay bowls, while scolding a boy who's clearly considering a pre-meal snack he wasn't invited to. He spots you watching, grins like a rascal, and winks. You wink back. There's always one. A pair of older men shuffle by, robes pulled tight, deep in conversation about the fleet in Piraeus or the rising cost of barley. One mutters something about democracy being fine until that guy opens his mouth again, and the other sighs in complete agreement, though he's not quite sure who they're complaining about anymore. Probably all of them. You turn onto a more crowded stretch, lanterns hanging on cords between buildings, swaying slightly in the breeze. Their glow paints everything in gold and sepia, like Athens is gently trying to lull you into nostalgia. Your shoulders loosen without you realizing it. Someone nearby hums an old song, off-key but comforting. You step around a puddle that you really hope is just spilled water from a housekeeper's bucket. Note: sanitation in Athens is an ongoing experiment. The walls are streaked with the evidence of life, chalk doodles from children, soot trails from torches, and the occasional poorly drawn, politically charged doodle of a local magistrate. You know, the classics. From behind a beaded curtain, a woman laughs, a deep, hearty laugh that makes you want to be her friend, or at least hear the punchline. A second later, you catch the scent of roasted garlic and wine. Someone's feast is well underway, and you weren't invited. Rude, mainstream historical fact. In the classical period, most Athenian homes were modest and built around a central courtyard where families gathered in the evening to eat, talk, and sometimes argue over who left the amphora open. You step around a clay pot left out for the night air. Inside it's full of water and some sort of herb, mint, maybe basil, a low-tech attempt to purify it overnight. Your stomach growls at the smell. You make a mental note to find a snack later, perhaps a honey cake, if one miraculously falls into your path. A donkey trundles past, led by a sleepy boy who is clearly not thrilled to be running errands after dark. The donkey, on the other hand, appears to be thriving. There's something strangely smug in the way it clops along, chewing rhythmically and ignoring everyone. Honestly, it's giving big philosopher energy. You keep moving, the air growing cooler now, and as you pass a sculptor's workshop, you hear the tail end of a joke. And then he says, "That's not my chisel, it's the States." A burst of laughter follows. You peek inside. 2 men and a woman are gathered under a tarp-covered patio, sipping wine, surrounded by half-finished busts and piles of marble shavings. The woman is carving a nose with frightening precision. She doesn't even look up as she delivers a deadpan. "You've told that joke 5 times, Thales." Fringe tidbit. Some artisans claimed they could hear the personality of the stone before they began carving. If it hummed softly in the right frequency, it would become a noble figure. If it cracked too early, well, it was clearly meant to be a villain. You press forward toward a row of homes with small gardens spilling onto the street. Grapevines stretch across trellises, and you swipe a loose leaf between your fingers. It smells like late summer, like sap and secrets. A dog barks once half-heartedly, and then flops down again. Guard duties in Athens are mostly optional after dusk. From a nearby corner, you hear a group of children whispering urgently. You glance over to see them crouched in the shadows, clearly in the middle of some illicit nighttime operation. One is holding what looks like a stolen cheese wedge. Another is unspooling twine. The third is the lookout and makes intense eye contact with you. You give them a slow, solemn nod, the international symbol for "I saw nothing." They exhale in relief and vanish down the alley with the stealth of slightly clumsy ninjas. Historians still argue whether the average Athenian night was quiet and serene, or full of noise, movement, and just enough low-grade chaos to keep things interesting. You're leaning toward the latter. You pause beside a public fountain, the kind that trickles softly into a shallow basin. Someone's left a bundle of flowers on the edge, wilted but sincere. Probably an offering to a nymph, or an apology to a very specific woman named Althea. Your hand dips into the water, and it's surprisingly cold. You splash a bit on your face, and the droplets feel electric, like the city has recharged you. Across the way, an old man with an enormous beard sneezes so loudly it startles 3 pigeons and a cat. He waves at you, then immediately forgets he's seen you. Up ahead, a lantern swings gently from a nail. Its flame dances in the breeze, casting shifting shadows that feel like the beginning of a dream. You walk beneath it, the world narrowing and softening with every step. The wind changes again, bringing with it the smell of honey, charcoal, and something else. Possibly oregano, or possibly someone's ill-fated attempt at roasting something experimental. A painted wall catches your eye. It's a mural, half-faded, showing 2 gods locked in some intense staring contest. Probably Ares and Athena again. Honestly, they need to go to couples therapy. A breeze runs its fingers through your hair as you reach a fork in the street. One path leads uphill, toward the sacred rock of the Areopagus. The other leads down, toward the glowing archways of a tavern, where voices, laughter, and the scent of cooked lamb call to you like a siren. You hesitate just for a second, and then you follow the sound of voices, slipping through the stone and flickering flame, deeper into the belly of Athens. The tavern is tucked into the side of a modest building, its wooden beams groaning like they're ready to retire. A small sign swings overhead, etched with a crude drawing of a crater, half wine, half mystery. You duck beneath the doorway. The scent of smoke, roasted onions, and sweat-soaked tunics enveloping you instantly. It's comforting, in a vaguely unhygienic way. Inside, it's dim but alive. Lanterns hang low, their flames licking the edges of copper reflectors. Tables are packed shoulder to shoulder, some barely more than crates with tablecloths. Men recline on cushions, barefoot and relaxed, feet aimed casually at their friends, in a move that says, "Yes, we're that comfortable now." You slide into an empty spot near a support pillar, just close enough to hear the ongoing debate at the next table. A group of men are deep into what appears to be a heated philosophical argument, fueled more by wine than logic. One guy in a blue-dyed chiton slaps the table, declaring, "And that is why the soul is obviously shaped like a crab." The others boo and throw olive pits at him. One man sighs, sipping his diluted wine with the tragic air of someone who knows he'll be listening to this same argument tomorrow. Mainstream historical fact: symposiums were common evening gatherings in Athens. Part drinking party, part intellectual arena, part social performance. Think frat party, but with more Plato and fewer red solo cups. The innkeeper, a broad-shouldered woman with the tired glare of someone who's seen too many poets try to pay in verse, slides a pitcher of wine your way. "It's not great," she warns, "but it's here." You nod in solemn gratitude. You sip, and it is indeed aggressively mediocre, but it's cool, and the taste fades quickly, leaving behind a faint trace of dried fruit and the subtle whisper of regret. Still better than some boxed wines you've met. Behind you, a young man begins plucking at a lyre. He's trying. The notes wobble like a toddler on stilts, but he's determined. His friend claps along offbeat, and no one tells them to stop. The tavern thrives on chaos and forgiveness. A bowl of nuts makes its way around the room, each person grabbing a handful like it's tradition. When it reaches you, there's only one nut left. You take it dramatically, as if you've won a prize. The crowd approves. Fringe tidbit: some Athenians believed that cracking nuts during a gathering could ward off petty arguments, or invite Zeus to join the party. Depends on who you ask, and how much they've had to drink. A woman stands near the back wall, reciting lines from Euripides. Her voice is smooth as warm olive oil, and she doesn't break character even as a goat pokes its head in the door behind her. She swats it away without looking. The crowd claps when she finishes. The goat looks personally offended. At your table, a man leans in and says, "First time?" You nod. He gestures to your cup. "Drink, sir, slow. This stuff will sneak up on you like an Athenian tax collector." He cackles at his own joke. You like him immediately. Historians still argue whether the common man truly participated in Athens' famed intellectual scene, or if that was just the elite projecting their own dinner parties onto society. But here, it's clear. Ideas flow right alongside the wine. Across the room, two teens attempt a dramatic reenactment of the Battle of Marathon using breadsticks and dramatic gasps. It is both wildly inaccurate and incredibly entertaining. When one pretends to fall in slow motion into the bean dip, the room erupts in applause. A servant girl passes by with a tray of cheese and olives. She winks at you before disappearing into the shadows, like an efficient mythological creature. You weren't planning on falling in love tonight, eh? But hey, Athens has plans. You lean back, absorbing the atmosphere. The flickering light plays across the wooden beams above. In the corner, someone tries to light a pipe and nearly sets his own hair on fire. A friend smothers the flames with a cushion, then yells, "Your head's too philosophical. It attracted the ether." You laugh harder than you should. It feels good, freeing. Then the door creaks open, and in steps a familiar figure, stooped but spry, with the kind of beard that has seen empires rise and fall. The room hushes slightly. Even the lyre player stops mid-squeak. It's Thalides, retired playwright, eternal critic, and walking complaint. He's clutching a scroll and a cup that definitely isn't his. "Sit," he announces to no one in particular. "I have things to say and they're all terribly important." A space clears for him instantly. The man radiates importance, like a damp sponge radiates mildew. He begins, "So, I was walking near the Tholos today, and I saw a priest sneeze, and then immediately drop a sacred loaf. Clearly, the gods are displeased. Discuss." What follows is an argument so convoluted it could qualify as an Olympic event. You sip your wine and bask in the glow of collective nonsense. Eventually, someone starts singing. Badly, loudly, everyone joins in anyway. You catch the chorus quickly. It's about a man who fell in love with a statue and broke his nose kissing it. Happens to the best of us. You clap in rhythm, forgetting for a moment where you are, what century it is, or whether any of this is actually real. The moment is complete, messy, warm, and unforgettable. And then as the song dies down, the goat sneaks back in. It heads straight for the wine. You let it happen. The goat, to no one's surprise, knocks over a crater with the precision of a seasoned saboteur. The wine spills like a tiny river, gurgling dramatically before soaking into the dirt floor. A collective groan rises, followed by resigned laughter. The innkeeper doesn't even look up. She just mutters, "Third time this week," and tosses the goat a stale roll in begrudging tribute. You slip out of the tavern, cheeks flushed and limbs pleasantly loose. The air outside feels cooler now, with a late breeze skimming off the rooftops and through the narrow alleys. You stretch your arms skyward, fingers brushing nothing but the night, and start walking toward the looming outline of the Acropolis. Each step takes you closer to the heart of ancient power and myth, where marble and shadow blur. The laughter and wine-laced nonsense of the symposium fades behind you, replaced by the soft crunch of sand underfoot, and the distant cry of a night bird, possibly an owl, possibly a very judgmental crow with performance ambitions. The buildings grow fewer as you ascend the slope. More gaps between homes, more darkness, but never silent. Athens breathes at night, always. Somewhere, a lyre still strums. Somewhere, someone is still debating whether Socrates was a genius or just very good at making people cry. You pause at the foot of a staircase, chiselled directly into the rock. It leads upward, toward the Parthenon silhouette, where columns rise like ribs against the stars. As you climb, the breeze grows bolder. You smell old stone, crushed time underfoot, and the faint metallic tinge of offerings left in the cracks. Copper coins, bits of bone, olive pits. Mainstream historical fact, the Parthenon wasn't just a temple to Athena, it was also a treasury, housing a mountain of silver from the Delian League. You're walking past what was basically the ancient world's most architecturally beautiful bank vault. A pair of guards appear near the top, young, wide-eyed and obviously bored out of their minds. One leans on his spear, humming, the other's engraving something crude into his shield. They nod at you, not out of suspicion, but out of shared fatigue. You nod back, the international symbol for we're all pretending to be serious here. You drift past the columns now, beneath arches so massive they shrink your entire being. Light from the moon spills between the marble flutes, turning the floor into a pattern of stripes. Stone and moonlight, old and older, and that's when you hear it. The low, echoing call of an owl, Athena's bird. It lands on a column, its head swivelling with eerie grace. You freeze, not out of fear, but because the moment feels staged, like someone's trying really hard to remind you this place is sacred. The owl blinks, once, then flies off into the dark, leaving behind nothing but feathered silence. Fringe tidbit. It was believed that owls could see through deceit and into the truth of things. This might explain why ancient politicians didn't love them. A stone bench sits just off the path, half in shadow. You sink onto it, the chill of the marble grounding you. From here, the city spreads below. Lanterns glimmer like fallen stars, outlining alleys, courtyards, and little rooftop gardens. It's sprawling and soft and alive. A group of children dash past, their sandals clattering. One waves a stick like a sword. Another screams something about Medusa. A third, much smaller one, is wearing a pot on his head and insisting he's Apollo. You silently crown him the winner. Historians still argue whether sacred spaces like the Acropolis were ever truly quiet, whether moments like this existed, unburdened by ritual, politics, and the noise of human ambition. But in this pocket of night, all that feels very far away. You stand again, drawn toward the massive statue of Athena Promachos, the warrior goddess. Her spear catches the moonlight. It gleams like it's still ready to be used. A pigeon coos from her bronze helmet. The majesty's a little undercut by the poop stains on her feet. But hey, immortality has its downsides. You wander further, through a courtyard lined with votive offerings, small statues, scraps of fabric, tiny carved owls, and bowls of honey glint in the half-light. Someone's left a fresh loaf of bread beside a marble foot. Someone else, half a pomegranate. You spot a coin wedged into a crack and pretend you didn't see it. You're not that kind of tourist. A dog lies curled beneath one of the altars, snoring like an old man with sinus problems. It lifts its head as you pass, considers barking, then decides you're not worth the energy. The wind changes direction again. You catch the scent of incense, burnt pine and something smoky sweet. A priest must have been here earlier, whispering words to the gods, or to himself. You imagine what he might have said. Maybe a prayer for peace. Maybe for Athens to win the next naval skirmish. Or maybe just for his sandals to finally stop squeaking. From beyond the columns, a single flute note pierces the quiet. Just one. No melody follows. You glance toward the edge of the Acropolis, where the cliff drops into shadow. A figure sits alone on the lip, robe fluttering like a moth's wing. You hesitate, then approach. As you near, the figure turns slightly, revealing a woman in her 30s, hair tied back, eyes on the horizon. "I thought the gods would be louder," she murmurs, not looking at you. You smile. They're subtle, annoyingly so. She huffs a laugh and offers you a spot beside her. You sit, and together you watch the stars. They shine clearly tonight, scattered across the black, like powdered marble. The woman begins pointing out constellations. "That's Orion," she says, though some argue it's actually Theseus. Historians can't agree on anything. You grin. "Tell me about it." "And that," she continues, gesturing with her flute, "is Andromeda, poor girl, chained to a rock to be eaten by a sea monster. Typical weekend in mythology." You sit there a while, trading myths like gossip, letting the nights settle in your bones. Eventually, she stands, brushing the dust from her robe. "May the gods watch your steps," she says. "And your flute solos," you reply. She snorts and vanishes into the shadows, her notes echoing softly behind her like a lullaby. You linger a moment longer at the cliff's edge. Below, Athens glows, pulsing with life and stories. And above, the gods, if they're real, are probably watching and laughing, or judging your sandals. You stretch, yawn, and turn away from the edge, the marble cool beneath your soles as you descend. The city awaits. You descend from the Acropolis, careful not to trip on the uneven stone steps. Though if you were to fall, at least it'd be in the shadow of greatness. The moonlight pools between the marble columns behind you, and as you walk further down, the city regains its texture. Low voices, the crunch of gravel, the occasional clang of a distant gate. The grandeur fades, replaced by something more intimate. A courtyard peeks out through an arched entryway, flanked by tall potted myrtle trees. You stop, drawn by the rustle of leaves and the soft murmur of a voice, measured, deliberate, not quite loud enough to be a monologue, but certainly not a conversation. You slip through the open gate and find yourself standing beneath a pergola strung with woven reeds. A single lantern glows near the base of a fig tree, illuminating a man who is, well, arguing with a rock. He sits cross-legged, hand raised like a sophist, brow furrowed in dramatic defiance. "I will not apologize for calling you morally ambiguous," he says to the rock, which is either a metaphor or his therapist. You can't tell. Neither, possibly, can he. He notices you, but instead of embarrassment, he waves you over. "You've arrived at the perfect moment," he says. "This dolt thinks that justice requires compromise. I say it requires a firm slap and some olive oil." Thoughts? You blink. "Are we talking about people or—" "Everything is people," he sighs, then gestures to the space across from him. "Sit. Argue." You lower yourself onto a patch of grass, still warm from the day's heat. The fig tree above you creaks gently in the breeze. Somewhere nearby, a cricket gives its unsolicited commentary. Mainstream historical fact: Stoic and Cynic philosophers were known to hold impromptu debates in public places, agoras, baths, even random street corners. They believed wisdom belonged to all, not just those with scrolls and fancy sandals. The man launches into a diatribe about how most people confuse pleasure with peace. You try to listen, but you're mildly distracted by the fact that he's got a feather stuck in his beard. Also, one of his sandals is tied with what looks like a piece of ribbon from a children's toy. Clearly, enlightenment does not require fashion sense. Fringe tidbit. According to certain fringe anecdotes, the Cynic philosopher Diogenes once lived in a giant ceramic jar near the marketplace, barked at rich people, and sunbathed like a lizard. Some say he argued with statues for practice, others say he won. Your philosopher friend, whose name turns out to be Linos, asks if you've ever questioned the morality of dinner. You say yes, mostly because you once ate an entire wheel of goat cheese without sharing. He nods solemnly. A moral grey zone, but understandable. He pulls a fig from a small woven pouch and tosses it to you. "Think deeply before eating this," he warns, deadpan. You eat it immediately. He looks mildly betrayed, then breaks into a grin. Good. First lesson. Sometimes philosophy is just hunger with better posture. Historians still argue whether the Stoics were truly serene or just really good at hiding their anxiety behind complex metaphors and polished sandals. Either way, Linos seems more amused than tormented. He rises slowly and begins pacing the courtyard. "Athens is a dream," he says, "a beautiful illusion held together by salt, taxes, and uncomfortable tunics. But at night," he gestures at the sky, "at night, even the illusions sleep." You lean back, letting your eyes follow the twist of branches above. The leaves form constellations of their own. There's one that kind of resembles a chicken, or a philosopher in mid-existential crisis. Could be both. "I used to want to change the world," Linos muses. "Now I just want my neighbour to stop yelling about figs after sundown." From over the wall, a voice yells, "They were my figs, Linos!" He yells back, "It was a philosophical theft." You both laugh, and the night settles a bit more comfortably around your shoulders. A breeze carries the scent of blooming basil, and you realise how still the courtyard is, like time has slowed to a crawl. You trace patterns in the dust with your finger, letting the quiet fill in the spaces between thoughts. The lantern flickers, and Linos finally slumps down next to you again, letting out the kind of groan reserved for men who've sat in the same position for too long and also possibly regret all their major life decisions. "You know what I envy?" he asks. "Tell me." "The olives. They do nothing. Just hang, get oily, live forever." That sounds ideal, actually. It is. They don't write speeches. They don't pay taxes. They don't get tricked into debates with strangers in togas. You smile. Or argue with rocks. He nods toward his stony opponent. He's the best listener I've ever had. You rise, brushing yourself off, and thank him for the hospitality. "Come back tomorrow," he says. "I'll be fighting the concept of time." You promise to consider it, and step back into the street, the wooden gate creaking shut behind you. The laughter still echoes in your ears. The fig, strangely, seems to have made you hungrier. The city is quieter now. Most windows are dark. A few doorways glow gently, the silhouettes inside curled in sleep or quiet conversation. You step around a puddle where a frog stares up at you with suspicious intensity. It blinks once, then hops away. You feel judged. Somewhere in the distance, a man yells, "I am the knight," followed by a very audible stumble. You hope he's okay. You also kind of want to meet him. Ahead, another alley slopes downward, its stones slick with dew. You pause at the top, unsure if you want to return to the main roads or follow this quieter path. A breeze flutters your chiton like a lazy high five. You choose the alley, because let's be honest, in Athens, the weirdest paths are usually the most interesting. You step carefully down the alleyway, the stones damp beneath your soles. It's narrower than you expected, the kind of passage that makes you instinctively duck, even though there's clearly enough headroom. The moonlight can't quite reach here, just faint silver touches along the wall, like brush strokes hesitating to finish. At first, all you hear is the gentle dripping of water, probably from someone's rooftop cistern, and the far-off clatter of a wine jug rolling on cobblestones. Then from above, you catch the low, hollow thump of clay lids being lifted. You glance up and see a hand emerge from a rooftop, followed by a head. A boy, maybe 10 years old, is trying to sneak a fig from a clay amphora while holding a piece of bread in his teeth. He freezes when he sees you, eyes wide. You give him the universal sign of, "I didn't see anything." 2 fingers to your temple, then a wink. He grins triumphant and disappears back down into the darkness like a very sticky ghost. You smile to yourself and follow the alley until it opens into a tight, elevated courtyard. Here, a group of homes clusters together, their rooftops almost touching, and above them the sky explodes. Not literally, don't panic. It's just that here, with the rest of the city cloaked in silence, the stars feel impossibly close. Like you could reach out and rearrange Orion's belt just to mess with someone's horoscope. A creaky wooden ladder leans against the wall. You climb it slowly, partly for safety, mostly for drama, and pull yourself onto a rooftop that smells of sun-baked clay and damp linen. There are 3 amphorae sitting in a line, their lids off, releasing the cool, earthy scent of stored water and fermented fruit. Someone's clearly been using them to chill supplies overnight. A simple trick, night air and clay magic. One of them has a cloth tied around its neck like it's trying out a fashion statement. You lift the lid and peer inside. Figs, perfectly ripe. Probably sweet, possibly claimed by the aforementioned rooftop bandit. Mainstream historical fact. Amphorae were used for everything. Wine, olive oil, grain, figs, you name it. Their porous clay allowed for gentle cooling overnight, especially when soaked or buried partially in sand. Think of them as the ancient world's humble refrigerator. You sit beside them and take in the view. The rooftops ripple out below you like waves, flat and tidy, with the occasional cooking pot, laundry line, or loaf of bread left to rise under a netted cloth. A gentle breeze passes over, and you lie back against a pile of bundled reed mats, staring up at the night sky. Somewhere nearby, an old woman is humming. Not a song exactly, just a meandering tune like she's trying to remember the notes as they happen. You don't see her, but the sound drifts across the tiles like incense, curling in your ears and lulling you into a slow calm. A gentle creak announces another rooftop visitor. You glance over and see a boy in his late teens, barefoot, yawning, holding a candle stub in a cracked dish. He nods at you, not surprised, not curious, just acknowledging the existence of another rooftop dreamer. He settles on a mat a few rooftops away and lies on his stomach, using a chipped piece of slate as a pillow. He watches the stars like he's waiting for one to move. You both stay like that for a while. 2 strangers under the same sky, sharing silence like it's currency. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed that sleeping outdoors under the stars allowed you to receive clearer dreams, visions from the gods, ancestral whispers, or just excellent excuses for why you forgot to wake up for market duty. After a while, your stomach grumbles again. You shift toward the amphora, pluck a fig, and bite in. It's warm on the outside, but bursting with sweet nectar inside. Cool, soft and sticky. The kind of flavour that makes your toes wiggle involuntarily. You glance upward and whisper, "Thanks, fig gods," or possibly just the boy thief. Historians still argue whether rooftops were truly places for sleeping or simply spillover spaces used for drying goods, keeping chickens, or hiding from the snoring of older relatives. But you're pretty sure at least some Athenians escaped up here just for the stars. From one corner of the rooftop, you spot something odd. A small shrine, barely knee-high, built from stacked stones and filled with tiny offerings. There's a walnut shell, a bead, a scrap of blue cloth, and a small dried flower, browned and delicate. Someone's prayers live here. You bow your head slightly, not sure why, but it feels appropriate. A moth flutters by your face, drunk on lantern light and ego. It lands on the rim of the amphora, wobbles and then dives dramatically into the darkness within. You make a mental note not to drink from that one. Off in the distance, the city exhales again. Dogs bark at something that doesn't matter. A man sneezes loudly enough to wake a neighbourhood, and a woman yells, "That was your portion," followed by the unmistakable sound of bread being weaponized. Closer by, the boy thief resurfaces 2 rooftops over, cradling a different jar like it's a baby goat. He glances at you, makes a shushing motion, then ducks below the parapet. You suspect he might be the neighbourhood's unofficial mayor. The night deepens. The breeze gets cooler. You wrap your arms around your knees and breathe in the mingled smells of figs, baked earth, and the faint hint of someone frying onions 3 blocks away. Then laughter, not loud, not sharp, but unmistakable. You scan the rooftops and see 2 women sitting side by side, sharing a blanket and a bowl of something steaming. One leans over and whispers something into the other's ear, triggering another round of giggles. You think, maybe this is what Athens really is. Not statues, not speeches, not battle maps and gold-stuffed temples, but this, warm clay, shared figs, whispered stories under a sky so ancient, even the gods might be dozing. You lie back again, blinking at the stars. They blink back, and somewhere out there, above all this dust and stone, a goddess smiles sleepily and lets the city dream. The clay beneath your spine is warm, but the breeze is growing cooler now, wrapping around your arms and gently nudging you toward motion. You stretch, bones popping just audibly enough to make the rooftop thief, a few houses over, give a mock sympathetic wince. He gestures a dramatic farewell and disappears into a stairwell like some miniature Athenian legend retreating into myth. You make your way down the ladder, your sandals clapping softly against the wall with each careful step. Back on the ground, the street has shifted again. Quieter now. Yes, but also deeper somehow. Like the night has thickened. You wander aimlessly for a while, letting your feet choose for you. At some point, you pass a man sweeping a doorstep with the kind of intensity usually reserved for avenging a personal betrayal. He pauses only to sneeze and resume, as if the dust insulted his honour. You nod to him. He doesn't look up. Then, just as you round a corner, a flicker of movement catches your eye. A flutter of robe, a crooked lantern hanging from a doorpost, and the unmistakable sound of a story beginning. It draws you in like gravity. The house is small and square, with its inner courtyard glowing soft orange from a central fire pit. A semicircle of children, maybe a dozen, maybe more, sits cross-legged on woven mats. In the centre of them, perched on a wooden stool so worn it has its own personality, is a man whose beard could qualify for citizenship. He looks up as you approach and grins. "Another set of ears, eh? Come, we've only just begun the second tale, and the first barely traumatised them at all." The children make room for you like it's been agreed upon, by ancient decree. One offers you a half-eaten honey cake. You decline politely, only slightly heartbroken. You sit. The fire pops. The man clears his throat and begins. Mainstream historical fact. Storytelling was an essential thread in the fabric of Athenian life. Not just for children, but as a method of teaching, remembering, and preserving both history and morality. Even illiterate citizens could recite entire epics by memory. His voice flows like honey, slow, warm, and sticky with imagery. He doesn't tell the stories at the children, but with them. They finish lines. They gasp in all the right places. When he describes the Minotaur, they shiver and lean closer, some clutching the edges of their chitons like armour. The tale tonight is a strange one. Not quite from Homer, not quite invented. It's about a boy who dreams of turning into a dolphin so he can leap over enemy triremes and eat all their salted fish supplies. Half myth, half food-driven ambition. There's a talking crab. There's definitely a confusing subplot about sneezing causing earthquakes. It's absurd and lovely, and you're very invested in the dolphin plan. Fringe tidbit. There are records of animal tales, sometimes featuring shape-shifting heroes, that were told at bedtime in rural Attica. Most have been lost, but whispers remain of foxes that solve riddles, turtles who debate philosophers, and pigs that could predict weather by sneezing in iambic pentameter. The old man's voice drops into a whisper. The children lean in. One picks his nose but maintains eye contact, which is commendable. Another tugs her blanket up to her chin and whispers, "He's going to get caught." The dolphin boy always gets caught. "Does he?" the old man asks. "Does he always?" The fire snaps dramatically. One of the amphorae rattles slightly, like it's in agreement. The tale takes a sudden turn. The boy, mid-leap between ships, remembers he left his sandals on the shore. The audience gasps. A small boy yells, "Those were expensive!" Another starts to cry softly and is quickly soothed by an older sister and a piece of flatbread. Eventually, the tale ends, not in tragedy or triumph, but in a gentle drifting. The boy remains a dolphin, forever swimming in circles, just slightly unsure whether he made the right choice. That, the old man says, is how you almost become a hero. The children groan. One throws a fig stem. Another applauds wildly. The crowd is split, as all good stories should leave them. Historians still argue whether storytelling was more entertainment or education in classical Athens. But here, it's clearly both. And something more. Community. Bonding. Shared breath in a shared pause. The storyteller slumps slightly, as if the story has drained his bones. He reaches for a mug, possibly water, possibly weak wine, and sips with theatrical satisfaction. One of the children taps your shoulder. "Want to hear the one about the sneeze that stopped a war?" You nod solemnly. "Absolutely." But the old man chuckles. "That one's for tomorrow night. Can't just give away all the sneezes in one evening." He shoos the children gently toward the door. Some of them yawn like it's a contest. One pretends to fall asleep, dramatically, right there in the dust. Another insists he saw the Minotaur once, in the fish market, buying sardines. You linger as the courtyard empties out, the fire reduced to glowing pebbles and drifting smoke. The old man looks at you, eyes twinkling beneath heavy lids. "You walk like someone looking for something," he says. You shrug. "Maybe." "Well," he says, "sometimes Athens doesn't give you what you want. Just what you didn't know you needed, usually with olives." You smile and thank him. As you step out of the courtyard and into the street again, you notice your shoulders feel lighter. The air tastes a little sweeter. The fire's glow still clings to your tunic. And far in the distance, maybe from the rooftops again, someone is softly humming the Dolphin Boys theme. You don't know how you know it's that, but you do. You hum along. The streets feel softer now, worn smooth by sandals and the weight of years. You walk at a slower pace, belly warm with laughter and fig-sweet memories, the firelight from the storyteller's courtyard still flickering behind your eyes. A breeze nudges your tunic against your legs. You adjust the fabric. It's not itchy exactly, just present. A reminder that Athenian fashion was designed by people who really loved rectangles and weren't too concerned with ventilation. You pause at a small public fountain. Water trickles lazily into a stone basin, worn smooth by thousands of hands. You bend, splash your face, and study your reflection. It's wavy and uncertain, a little like you feel inside, but also peaceful. Then you hear it, a dramatic gasp. You turn. A group of young Athenian women are strolling past, chitons hitched slightly above their ankles, sandals clapping delicately on the stones. Their robes are crisp, pinned at the shoulders with polished bronze clasps shaped like dolphins and owls. Hair neatly braided with the kind of casual elegance that says, "We definitely did not spend 2 hours on this." They absolutely did. One of them points at your tunic and whispers, a bit too loudly, "He's wearing the open-stitch drape. Isn't that so last Dionysia?" You blink. You didn't even know chitons had fashion cycles. Another girl snickers and adjusts her hymation like she's wrapping herself in judgment. Mainstream historical fact. Ancient Greek clothing was relatively simple in form, mostly rectangles of linen or wool draped and pinned. But within that simplicity lay complex social codes. Length, colour, fabric quality, and even how it was belted could communicate everything from age to class to just broke up with a sculptor. The group moves on, casting one last sideways glance like they've just reviewed you in a play. One of them gives you a pity smile. You respond with a slight nod, the universal expression of, "Yes, I know I'm a fashion disaster, but I'm at peace with it." Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed that tying your sash in a particular knot, called the Heraclean loop, could protect you from embarrassment, clumsy accidents, and heartbreak. So basically, an ancient version of a friendship bracelet, but with more pressure. You continue down the street, tugging at your sash to see if maybe it's just tied wrong. It's not. You're just wearing it like someone who dressed in the dark with philosophical conviction. As you pass a window, you catch a glimpse of your reflection again. Dishevelled, wind-ruffled, slightly fig-stained, and possibly fashionable in a wandering poet kind of way. At least that's what you tell yourself. The road ahead opens into a broader plaza. The light here is gentler, scattered by wall-mounted oil lamps, and the occasional torch wedged into a bracket. There's a breeze funneling through this space, and it sends your tunic flapping like it's auditioning for a play about betrayal. You spot a trio of young men sitting on a low wall, clearly trying to look casual, and failing spectacularly. One is flexing under the guise of stretching. Another is poking a papyrus scroll and pretending he's totally reading it. The third just keeps glancing at the road, hoping someone, anyone, will come by and notice how excellent his calf definition is. As you pass, the reader stage whispers, "That scroll? So rare. Only 3 copies in the whole city." He flips it upside down and keeps reading. You give him a thumbs up. He beams. Across the way, an old woman is selling lengths of dyed fabric from a low stool. She eyes your tunic with a practiced gaze. "You want a better fold," she says, without looking up. "Yours looks like you wrestled a goat." "That's not inaccurate," she chuckles, hands you a length of indigo cloth. "Here, try this. Indigo means confidence or royal debt. Depends on who asks." You wrap it around your shoulders. Immediately, you feel 12% more heroic. Maybe even 15% if the lighting hits right. Historians still argue whether certain colours truly held universal meaning across ancient Athens or whether the symbolism shifted based on fashion trends, festivals, or whoever was loudest at the symposium that week. A younger girl helping at the stall peers at you, tilts her head and declares, "You look like a sea captain who forgot his boat." The old woman beams. "High praise." You laugh and thank her, leaving a few coins in the bowl beside her lamp. The indigo cloth swings as you walk now, catching a bit of wind. You feel slightly more fluid, slightly less forgot to dress with purpose. Further on, you pass a set of bathhouse steps where steam curls like lazy ghosts from beneath the doorway. Two women sit at the entrance, dabbing at their necks with cloths and arguing over whether goat milk or donkey milk is better for the skin. "I'm telling you," one says, "goat milk clarifies." "Oh, you should have seen how radiant I looked after Nemea." "Oh, please," the other replies, "you looked radiant because you were standing near a torch." You slip past, catching the tail end of their debate. "Donkey milk is practically divine. Cleopatra used it. Cleopatra's Egyptian." Beauty knows no borders. Mainstream bathhouse gossip. Even in ancient Athens, beauty tips were currency. You pause at a small garden wall, fragrant with night-blooming jasmine. A few tunics hang nearby, freshly washed and flapping gently. One is covered in embroidery. Waves, little fish, possibly a sea monster, depending on the angle. Fringe tidbit, Athenian embroidery, often told stories in miniature. Hidden symbols, jokes, or secret prayers woven into hemlines. It's entirely possible that someone's ankle was carrying a love letter or a curse on their landlord. You glance at your own plain sash, then at the embroidered tunic. Tempting, but probably rude. To steal laundry, even in the name of style. You walk on, now fully swathed in a blend of rumpled linen, ambition, and borrowed indigo. From a nearby rooftop, a cat lets out a long, unimpressed yowl. Yeah, you mutter. "I'm working on it." Athens doesn't demand perfection, just presence, a willingness to wander, to fumble, to get judged by teenagers and outdressed by goats. And as you round another corner, the breeze tugs at your new cloak like an approving nudge. Maybe you won't win any Athenian fashion games tonight, but you're definitely in the running for best-dressed fig thief sympathiser, which, honestly, feels like the right category for you. The alley narrows again, but you welcome it. After the fashion parade, the judgmental cats, and that emotionally confusing moment with the embroidered laundry, you're ready for a bit of anonymity. These back streets feel like the real veins of Athens, not the gleaming marble arteries, but the quiet capillaries that keep everything alive. A clay lantern swings gently above you from a frayed bit of twine. The flame inside dances like it's practicing for a festival. You duck beneath it, pausing as your eyes adjust to the soft shadows. Then you hear it, a low voice, deliberate and insistent, echoing between the walls like a theatrical performance without an audience. You creep forward and peek around the corner. Two teenagers are standing toe to toe beneath a fig tree, one holding a stick like a staff, the other brandishing a loaf of bread, as if it's a scroll. Yes, you heard that right, bread. The one with the stick declares, "Justice is only real when felt, like sunlight." The bread wielder counters, "Justice is baked into the law, like raisins." They freeze as you approach. For a second, no one speaks. You raise a hand. "Please continue." They exchange a glance. The bread wielder nods solemnly. "We're practicing for a mock debate tomorrow." "Who's judging?" you ask. "My cousin. She's 12, and she's very into Aristotle." You sit on a low stone ledge, and they continue, flinging rhetoric back and forth with all the subtlety of a comedy chorus. There are wild metaphors, impassioned hand gestures, and at least one unfortunate misquote of Plato that involves a sea cucumber. Mainstream historical fact: public debate wasn't limited to philosophers and politicians. Athenian education, even among youths, included rhetoric, persuasion, and lively argument as foundational tools for civic life. Even children were taught to speak with structure, flair, and a touch of sass. They pause mid-argument as a stray cat slinks between them, meowing loudly like it's taking offence on behalf of all sea cucumbers. Her name's Ajax, one of the teens says, but Ajax was a warrior. She's got the same energy. Fair enough. The cat curls on your tunic as if summoned, sheds purposefully, and begins to purr with the self-satisfaction of someone who just settled a property dispute by sitting on both sides. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed cats were semi-sacred, associated with protection and wisdom. Others just thought they were lazy thieves with excellent posture. Both are correct. The bread debater breaks character for a moment. Do you really think it matters, he asks. Any of it? The arguing? The raising justice? You look at the two of them, earnest, awkward, brilliant, and shrug. Even if no one hears it tonight, maybe someone remembers it later. Maybe someone repeats it. Maybe a cat uses it to justify stealing figs. Doesn't that count? The stick debater lights up. That's kind of beautiful, the bread one nods. Like crumbs of wisdom. Exactly, you say. Crumbs of wisdom for pigeons of truth. They both immediately start writing that down. Historians still argue whether the younger generation of Athens was more radical or more traditional. But one thing's clear, they were paying attention, and sometimes they had better metaphors. You rise to leave, but they stop you. The stick debater produces a scroll, hands it to you with great ceremony. It's our draft manifesto, he says. Title, Fig Trees and Fairness. You take it, bow slightly, and swear to treasure it forever. Ajax the cat meows once approvingly, then bolts into the night like she's late for a temple appointment. You head back to the street, tucking the scroll into your sash. The city feels somehow warmer now, less intimidating. You've walked among temples and philosophers, but it's these strange debates under fig trees that feel most real. A breeze kicks up, and as you round a corner, you hear it. Music. Not formal lyre music, not temple chants, street music. A beat tapped out on clay pots. A hum carried on the wind. And then, laughter. You follow it instinctively. At a small crossroads, a group of teens and young adults are gathered around an overturned basket. One taps rhythmically with a spoon. Another claps in sync. A third hums a tune that sounds like it might have once been a hymn, but now it's wearing sandals and dancing under the stars. You're spotted almost immediately. You, someone calls. Can you sing? You freeze. Only in emergencies. Perfect. This counts. You're pulled in without protest. Someone hands you a dried gourd to shake. Another ties a strip of cloth around your head, like you've been officially conscripted into a spontaneous band. The music picks up. Someone spins. Someone claps out of rhythm. Everyone is grinning. Mainstream fact, informal gatherings like these were common in Athenian neighbourhoods. Music, dance and song weren't reserved for festivals or rituals. They were everyday forms of bonding, joy and mischief. You try to keep up, shaking the gourd like your life depends on it. The rhythm gets faster. Someone yells, "Now hop," and the entire group begins hopping in a circle, like deranged bunnies with a lyre sponsor. A chorus breaks out, made-up lyrics about a fish that married a melon and moved to Corinth. You contribute the echo line. To Corinth they go, to Corinth they know. And someone yells, "It doesn't rhyme," but keeps dancing anyway. Fringe tidbit. Athenian songs often included nonsense verses or intentionally bad rhymes, partly to amuse, partly to confuse evil spirits who might try to sneak into the festivities and harsh the vibe. Eventually, the group collapses in a heap of laughter, sweat, and tangled chitons. Someone offers you a swig from a leather flask. You sip and cough. It's probably wine, but possibly also some form of punishment. You sit back, catching your breath. The stars swirl above you like drowsy fireflies. A young woman next to you says, "We're going to be the old ones someday. Do you think we'll remember this?" You glance around. At the laughing faces, the beat-up gourd, the scroll of fig trees and fairness still tucked into your sash. Yeah, you say. I really do. And maybe, just maybe, someone in this group will be the next great orator, or poet, or baker with unusually strong feelings about justice. But for tonight, they're just kids, laughing, creating history one ridiculous beat at a time. Eventually, the music fades into the cobblestones, like a tide pulling back into the sea. The air cools again, wrapping around your shoulders and gently pressing on your temples like the city itself is saying, "Okay, fun's over, let's wind down now." You wave a final goodbye to the impromptu band, one of whom is now attempting to play his gourd like a trumpet, bless his heart, and continue on your way. The night feels quieter now, but not sleepy, not yet, just patient. You walk toward a familiar slope near the edge of the agora. From this gentle rise, the rooftops drop away for a spell, opening up to a clearer view of the heavens. You reach the top, step carefully around a pile of amphora shards, someone's clumsy evening no doubt, and find yourself staring at the sky. And what a sky! Deep velvet blue, stitched with stars. Wide and knowing. The Milky Way pours diagonally across it, a faint mist of light barely visible, but just enough to make you feel like someone left a lamp on in the divine hallway. You lie back against the cool stone and exhale, your fingers laced behind your head. The city hushes beneath you, just a low murmur now, like distant waves. Somewhere, a rooster crows prematurely. It's confused, it'll get there. To your left, two figures perch on the rooftop edge, legs dangling. A boy and girl, maybe 16, maybe older, whispering between giggles. Their heads are close, their feet swinging like kids, but their body language says, "This is serious." You turn your gaze away. There's a certain kind of intimacy that deserves space. Still, you can't help but overhear snippets. "There's Hercules," he says, pointing upward. "See the bent leg? That's a lizard," he squints. "No, the lizard's next to it. That's definitely Hercules, or Perseus, or Hercules' cousin." She leans into him. "You're just making it up," he grins. "So are they. That's the fun of it." Mainstream historical fact. Ancient Greeks used the stars for everything. Navigation, planting crops, telling time. But constellations weren't just functional. They were stories in the sky. Tales of gods, monsters, heartbreaks, and wild transformations passed down, with a finger pointed upward and a dramatic gasp. The girl hums thoughtfully. "My grandmother used to say that when you see Orion you have to whisper your regrets. Otherwise, he comes down and whispers his into your dreams." "Is that true?" She smirks, number. "But I always do it anyway, just in case." You close your eyes for a second and consider whispering one too. Nothing dramatic, just a regret involving a very questionable fig pie from earlier. Fringe tidbit. In some rural parts of Greece, people would murmur secrets to the stars on cloudless nights, hoping the gods would overhear them and adjust their fates accordingly. Essentially, celestial customer service. You roll onto your side, facing a nearby roof, where an older man lies flat on his back, arms spread like he's making a dust angel. He mumbles to no one, "I knew she was the one when she beat me at dice." Then louder, "She cheated, but still." Athens is full of dreamers tonight. Historians still argue whether nighttime was a time of true rest in ancient cities or just a quieter shift of the day's chaos. But up here, above the bustle and the fig-related legal drama, it feels like the city is genuinely pausing, like the noise is on a dimmer switch. A cricket sings nearby. The boy on the ledge points at another cluster. "That's Andromeda, I think. She was chained to a rock, not for fun. Sea monster situation." The girl shivers. "I wouldn't have waited for someone to rescue me. I'd have kicked the monster myself." He nods reverently. "You probably would have tamed it and made it your pet," she grins, "and fed it raisins." You lie there for a while, letting their dialogue become part of the rhythm of the night. Their soft laughter joins the breeze. Somewhere far off, a donkey brays with the emotional range of a heartbroken playwright. The boy and girl flinch, then dissolve into uncontrollable giggles. A breeze picks up again, shifting your indigo cloth. You wrap it tighter, resting your head against your arm. The stone is cool. The stars are still busy doing nothing and everything. You hear footsteps, soft, deliberate. Someone else climbing up. A young woman in a wool shawl appears, carrying a tray. On it, a jug of watered wine, 2 cups, and a plate of cut melon. She surveys the rooftop like she's evaluating property value. Anyone thirsty? You raise a hand without thinking. She paws without asking your name. I come here most nights, she says. My father sleeps early. My sister snores. I bring snacks, watch the sky, sometimes write bad poetry. I support all of that, you say, between sips. She raises a brow. Even the bad poetry. Especially the bad poetry. She takes a piece of melon, chews and looks out. I like to imagine the gods have their own constellations. Like mortals up there, regular folk, a goat, a stubborn baker, someone who made the perfect loaf and then dropped it. A true tragedy. Epic. She settles beside you, her tray between you like a small offering table. You both stare upward again. You see that one? She asks. It's a little crooked cluster, kind of like a bent lyre. Barely. That's mine. I named it Lyra. It's where my best thoughts live. You nod. What happens if someone else sees it? They borrow one of my thoughts, and I borrow one of theirs. You both fall silent. Above, the stars don't twinkle. They watch, slow and ancient, constant. Eventually, she collects her tray and stands. Write something if you feel like it, she says, nodding to a small scroll tucked beneath a loose tile. Even bad poetry deserves a home. She walks, away, vanishing into the soft dark. You wait until she's gone, then crawl over and retrieve the scroll. It's half full. Small scribbles, a few verses, one illustration of what might be a dog wearing a toga. You add a line. Something about stars, something about figs, something about not being alone. Then you roll it up and tuck it back beneath the tile and lie back down. The city sleeps, the sky watches, and you keep breathing, keep wondering, and keep drifting forward with the night. A gust of wind nudges you awake, or at least back toward alertness. You stretch out on the rooftop, bones creaking like an old door, and shake off the fine layer of dust that's settled over your arms. Somewhere behind you, a rooster crows again. Still early, still wrong. You sit up slowly and glance across the rooftops. The girl with the melon and poetry is gone. The teenage couple has disappeared too, leaving behind only a squished fig and a sandal. Just one. You hope it's not part of a dramatic breakup. The rooftop feels a little too still now, so you descend again. Careful steps, chilled air brushing your cheeks. The stone path welcomes you, like an old friend. A few torches remain lit along the street walls, their flames slow and flickering, like they're starting to doubt their own importance. Ahead, a tall figure emerges from the gloom, silhouetted against the curved white wall of a gymnasium. You hear a grunt, a thud, and a muffled groan. You move closer, then pause. The man is shirtless, glistening in the torchlight, leaning over to stretch a shoulder, while muttering, "It's just a pulled muscle, not the wrath of Zeus. Stop whining." He doesn't notice you at first. He's too absorbed in massaging his bicep with one hand, while punching a tightly bound straw dummy with the other. Another grunt, another kick, a hop, a wince. You clear your throat gently. He turns, nods, and sighs. "Don't get old," he mutters. "You don't look old, you say. That's because you can't see my hip from there." Mainstream historical fact. The gymnasia of Athens weren't just places of physical training. They were cultural hubs where athletes, philosophers, and young citizens in training came to exercise, socialise, and show off exactly how oily a human could become without technically bathing. He drops onto a bench and waves a hand. "Come to train?" You hesitate, glancing at your sandals, which are still dusty from your rooftop dreams. Not tonight, he nods solemnly. Wise, training is for when you have goals, or revenge, or both. He takes a long drink from a clay jug and wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. I used to wrestle in the Panathenaic Games, 3rd place in 428. Lost to a man whose shoulders were wider than a warship, but I almost had him. Almost, he points to his eye. He sneezed. I flinched. He headbutted. Story of my life. Fringe tidbit. There was apparently no rule in ancient wrestling against well-timed sneezes or theatrical collapses, as long as you didn't bite. Biting was where Athens drew the line. The man stands again, stretching his arms high and groaning. I had dreams, you know. Fame, glory, statues. Still might get one, he chuckles, only if my knee gets its own pedestal. You walk with him around the perimeter of the training ground. He points out various objects with great enthusiasm. Greased discus stones, battered, sandals from past competitors, and a pair of shorts that may or may not have belonged to someone famous. These, he says, lifting one dusty sandal, belong to Menon, fastest runner in his year, could dodge a goat mid-gallop. That seems oddly specific. It happened. Goat was fine. Menon was never the same. You sit beside him again as he unwraps his wrist bindings. His fingers tremble slightly, worn from repetition. He's quiet for a long moment. I miss it, he says. The crowd, the sweat, the shouting, the feeling that everything mattered. Doesn't it still, he thinks, then shrugs. Maybe, but now I train boys with too much hair oil and no stamina. They pose more than they run. A pause. But, he adds, they smile when they win. Same as I did. Maybe it does still matter. Historians still argue whether the gymnasia were centres of idealised masculinity or sites of intense pressure and performance. But one thing's clear, sweat never lies, and neither does a bruised knee. You thank him for the walk. He waves you off with one hand while limping toward a clay water basin. Tell the gods, he calls out, that I almost beat a warship. You promise you will. As you walk away, your own body reminds you it's been a long night. Your knees ache in solidarity with his. Your shoulders feel heavier, not from burden, but from the accumulation of stories. You've carried laughter, whispered dreams, and now sore muscles not even your own. You follow a quieter path now, one that winds behind a bakery closed for the night. The scent of charred flour still lingers in the air. Crumbs lie scattered like relics. A cat eyes you from a basket and slowly blinks. The universal feline sign for don't touch anything. Then you hear it again. Another voice, softer this time. Someone humming. Not a melody you recognise, but ancient, layered with breath and habit. You peek through an open window and see a woman braiding her daughter's hair by lantern light. They're both humming now, in harmony. The mother murmurs something and the girl laughs. Her braid bounces as she shakes her head. You pause there for a while, not watching exactly, just existing nearby. It's one of those moments too private to intrude on, but too beautiful to ignore. And that's when it hits you. The gymnasiums, the debates, the taverns, the rooftops, the goats. None of it is separate. Athens isn't a city made of marble and maps. It's a web of moments like this. And you're tangled in it now, in the best possible way. You take a deep breath, exhale slowly, and keep walking. The sky above you hasn't changed. Still stars, still deep blue. But you feel different, stronger. Not because you lifted anything heavy, but because tonight you've carried everything. You drift farther from the agora now, your path guided by instinct and moonlight. The streets here are older, quieter, and full of the kind of shadows that seem like they remember things you've already forgotten. Ahead, a lantern sways gently from a doorway. It creaks with each breath of the wind. Beneath it, slouched on a stool, with one sandal off and one eye half closed, is a man who may or may not be asleep. His cloak is stained, his beard impressively tangled, and his spear leans forgotten beside him. You recognize him immediately, not by name but by posture. He's a soldier, or was. You slow your step. His head lifts slightly. Lost? He croaks. No, you say gently. Just walking, he snorts. Luxury, you nod. It is, he squints at you. What time is it? Late. He seems satisfied with that. Mainstream historical fact. Athens, during and after the Peloponnesian War, was filled with veterans, some revered, some forgotten. Many bore physical scars, but more carried ones unseen, etched into their silence, their shoulders, their stares. The man straightens slightly, winces. His hand instinctively reaches for his side. Pulled something, he mutters. 30 years ago, still complains. You sit on the ground across from him, mindful of the stones. He glances at you again. You ever carry a shield? No, you admit. Good. Heavy things also. He coughs, the kind of cough that rattles memories. They lie. Shields make you think you're safe. You say nothing. He doesn't need your input, just your presence. I fought at Amphipolis, he says eventually. You recognize the name. Athenian defeat. Brutal, cold, personal. We lost, he adds. They tell the story like it was strategic, like it made sense. He leans back against the doorway. But I saw a boy cry because he dropped his spear, and another die trying to get it back. His voice doesn't rise, doesn't break, it's just there, like a stone being set down. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed that dreams could be haunted by the weapons you abandoned in battle. That if you dropped your sword and didn't retrieve it, it would whisper to you forever. You ask, do you still dream about it? He chuckles without humour. Only when I sleep, which is, thankfully, rare. A moment passes. He shifts, adjusts his leg. The cloak slides, revealing a faded tattoo, barely visible, but clearly a serpent, worn and stretched, the ink of youth. Historians still argue whether tattoos in ancient Greece were marks of pride or punishment, but soldiers sometimes got them anyway, tokens of loyalty, rebellion, or just something to feel permanent. You ask his name, he gives it. You repeat it softly, like a small offering. Most people don't ask anymore, he mutters. You gesture to his spear. Do you still carry it? Out of habit, he shrugs. Not purpose, he taps it, gently with one foot. It's like an old friend you don't trust but can't throw out. Then quieter. Or a promise you made and didn't know how to break. You sit with that. Let the words hang like smoke. Eventually, he gestures toward his jug. Wine? You take it, sip. It's strong, sharp, bitter in the back of your throat. You hand it back. He nods approvingly. You didn't gag. You smile faintly. Not out loud. A cat brushes against your knee. You glance down. It's Ajax again, apparently making her nighttime rounds. She jumps onto the man's lap like she owns the stool and purrs aggressively. He winces but doesn't move her. She keeps coming back, he says. Don't know why, I have nothing. She disagrees, you reply. For a while, there's silence. Then he murmurs, I had a friend named Daon. Funny, always humming, even when we marched. Drove everyone mad. Got him through fear, I think. What happened to him? He stopped humming. You breathe through it, not deeply, just enough to not break the quiet. You remind me of him, the man says suddenly. You tilt your head, not because you hum, but because you're still looking. Dion was always looking for something better. A reason, a hope, a fig that hadn't been stolen maybe. You both smile at that. He stretches slowly, his joints cracking like old wood. I should sleep, he mutters. Or pretend to. You stand, bow your head slightly. Ajax chirps at you, clearly disappointed you're not leaving snacks behind. You start to go, then turn back. Do you want me to tell your story to someone? He considers this. Only if you tell it badly. You raise an eyebrow. He grins, crooked and genuine. That way, it stays mine. Fair enough. You walk away. Not quickly. You carry his story now, not in your arms, but in the slow echo of your steps. And you wonder how many other streets in Athens hold stories like his, curled beneath doorways, waiting to be remembered. A breeze kicks up. You clutch your indigo cloth closer and keep walking. Farther along, the street widens again. A fig cart sits abandoned outside a shuttered stall. One fig remains, slightly bruised. You consider it, then leave it where it is. Some stories don't need eating, just remembering. You leave the soldier behind, his crooked smile and weathered spear lingering in your thoughts like incense. The street curls gently downhill now, leading you into the edges of the marketplace. The agora by day, but something else entirely by night. Quieter, yes, but not empty. You pass between two columns, where vines have begun their slow conquest. The moonlight filters through in stripes. A slow, tipsy breeze swirls around your ankles. And then, as you round a half-fallen wall, you see it. Chaos. Not battle, not robbery, nothing dramatic. Just a goat. A very drunk goat. It is standing atop a toppled table, teetering dangerously, chewing on a wilted grapevine, like it's challenging the gods to stop it. Its eyes lock on yours and you swear it knows things. A boy sprints after it, tripping over his own sandal and nearly colliding with a jar of olives that's somehow still upright. "You again?" he shouts at the goat, exasperated. "You don't even like grapes!" The goat bleats defiantly and kicks over the amphora anyway. Olives spill everywhere, cascading like edible marbles across the stone floor. Mainstream historical fact. The agora was the bustling commercial and civic heart of Athens. Livestock wandered freely through it during the day, much to the dismay of vendors and the delight of opportunistic goats. You watch as the boy corrals the creature into a makeshift pen, using a broom, a rope, and a look of deep betrayal. He sees you watching. He escaped again, from the philosopher's house. I swear he understands doors. You nod solemnly. He's evolved. Or cursed, the boy mutters, brushing olive pits off his knee. The goat bleats again, this time at the stars. Possibly in defiance, possibly in judgment. It's hard to tell with goats. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed that certain animals were touched by the divine, either gifted with insight or cursed with madness. Goats were often seen as both. The boy eventually traps the goat behind a fallen cart and drops to the ground beside you, panting. "I had plans tonight," he says. "Romantic?" "Olive-related," you nod. "Still counts?" Around you the agora unfolds like a shadow play. Stalls sit abandoned, their wares hidden under cloths or tied up in nets. A stack of broken baskets leans against a column, like it's trying not to be noticed. You walk among the stalls, the boy trailing behind, dragging his rope and muttering, "That goat is a menace. My aunt said he once ate a scroll." What was on it? A poem about figs. She still mourns it. You pass a small pile of abandoned vegetables. A pomegranate sits cracked open, its seeds glistening like rubies under the moonlight. You take one, press it between your fingers, and watch the juice bead and run down your thumb. Tart. Alive. The boy points to a bench. That's where the baker naps in the afternoon. He claims he gets recipe dreams. You sit. The stone is still faintly warm. The city, even in sleep, holds the heat of its own heartbeat. The goat has somehow gotten free again, and is now nudging a ceramic jug like it owes him money. "You ever get the feeling this place never really shuts off?" the boy asks. "All the time. Even when no one's selling, no one's buying. It's like the stalls are waiting." Historians still argue whether the Athenian agora truly slept at night, or if the marketplace became something different. Whispers, dreams, a space for the unsaid. But here, under flickering torches and goat-related chaos, it feels alive. You and the boy wander a bit farther, past a sculpture half covered by ivy. Its face is missing. The body, a proud stance, a chisel lies nearby, long forgotten. "I think someone was trying to make it look like Pericles," the boy offers, "but gave up when the nose went wrong." You tilt your head. Looks like a fish merchant to me. The boy laughs. Farther along you find a clay mask lying face up on a crate. It's cracked, but not broken. The smile is frozen, dramatic, full of theatre. He whispers, "That was from the last Dionysia. I think someone wore it while pretending to be a tree." A tree? A tree who had opinions. Sounds about right. Mainstream historical fact. During the Great Dionysia, dramatic performances filled the city with masks, costumes, and satire, many of which lingered long after the festival ended, repurposed for household performances or street jokes. You and the boy sit near a shuttered cheese stall, the sign still swinging slightly in the breeze. It reads, "2 goats, no refunds." You lean back and let the quiet stretch. A rat scurries by with a grape in its mouth, looking smug. A pigeon flutters down, coos once, and immediately regrets the decision. The boy suddenly says, "Do you think the gods walk through here at night?" You think for a moment. "If they do, I hope they like figs." He points upward. "Maybe they're walking up there, watching, listening. Judging our goat handling skills?" "Definitely." You glance over. The goat has somehow climbed onto a table again. The boy groans. "I'm naming him Euripides, because he causes drama." You help him tie Euripides to a lamppost, using the rope and a questionable knot. "You'll be okay?" you ask. He nods. "I'll sleep here. Keep watch. This isn't the first olive crisis I've survived." You squeeze his shoulder. "You'll be a legend." He grins. "Tell the gods I said hi. I'll mention you personally." As you walk away, he calls after you. "If you ever need olives at midnight, come find me." You wave, your laughter floating up to the stars. The agora fades behind you, its stalls whispering, its goat muttering. The city ahead waits, not quieter, just different. And your pockets? Well, they now hold 1 stolen pomegranate seed, a scroll, a fig-based justice, and the story of a goat named after a playwright. You're starting to suspect you won't leave Athens empty-handed. The agora vanishes behind you like a dream half-remembered. Just olives, laughter, and a goat-shaped blur in your peripheral vision. You rub your eyes, stretch your back, and follow a narrower lane that veers south, dipping beneath a crooked wooden arch, draped in grapevines and old cloth banners. This part of the city feels older, less polished, fewer lanterns, more shadows. But it's not the frightening kind of dark. It's the kind that invites secrets. And right now, you're curious. A chill runs over your shoulders, not from fear but from something else. An instinct, maybe. You slow your pace. The walls here are etched with faded images. A sun disk, a fish, a hand holding a sprig of laurel. Symbols, prayers, warnings. You're not sure which. Then you see her. A woman hunched over a small alcove beneath a statue. Her robes are dark, her hair tucked into a scarf. She's arranging something beneath the statue's feet. Carefully, with reverence, you inch closer. A cracked ceramic bowl filled with barley, a chicken feather, a sprig of rosemary tied with red thread, and nestled within it all, a small terracotta figure with only one eye. The woman doesn't look at you, but she speaks. "Don't step in the wax," you freeze. You glance down. Sure enough, there's a ring of wax encircling the offering, dotted with tiny fragments of bone, string, and something that might be shell or might be, well, you decide not to guess. Mainstream historical fact, superstition and folk magic were deeply woven into Athenian life, even in the heart of its so-called rational golden age. Offerings, curses, protective charms, they weren't fringe behaviour. They were normal, quiet, private, ever-present. She finishes her arrangement and finally turns her head. Her eyes are tired, but sharp. "You walk like a tourist," she says. "Not from here," you admit. "No one is," she replies. "Not at night. At night everyone belongs to the same silence." That feels true in your bones. She studies you. You have dust on your knees and fig sap on your sash. You've been blessed and judged. Mostly judged. Then you're learning? She picks up a small bowl filled with a milky substance and places it before the statue, murmuring something too quiet to catch. Then she turns to you. Do you have something to offer? You blink. I don't know. She shrugs. It doesn't have to be valuable, just true. You fumble in your sash. After a pause, you remove the crumpled scroll the teenage debaters gave you. Fig trees and fairness. You tear off the last blank edge and fold it into a tiny triangle. Then carefully, you place it on the stone. She watches, expression unreadable. Then she nods. Fringe tidbit. Archaeologists have uncovered lead-cursed tablets and humble folded papers buried in wells and tucked beneath temples. Most aren't dramatic. They're not smite thine enemies. They're small. Things, requests for peace, for love returned, for healing, for rest. The woman gestures toward the statue. She listens, but not with ears. Who is she, you ask? The figure is worn. Maybe once beautiful, maybe once terrifying. Now she's just presence. The woman whispers, she's not in the stories. That's how you know she's real. You sit beside her. The stone beneath you is cool, and the silence stretches again. This time, not heavy, but wide, like a blanket pulled up to your chin. Most people think Athens is the temples, she says, the statues, the debates. But this, she taps the bowl of barley, this is where the city breathes. You nod. You've seen the rooftops, the laughter, the tears beneath doorways. She's not wrong. Historians still argue whether household and street-level worship reflected official belief systems, or whether it represented a second, shadow religion entirely. But the truth? Athens lived on both altars. You shift slightly, careful not to bump the wax ring. The woman leans back, stretching her shoulders. My mother taught me to do this, she says, but not the words. The words are mine. And what do they ask for? Protection, forgiveness, a little sleep. You like that last one the most. A gust of wind rushes past, knocking over the barley bowl. She doesn't flinch, just scoops the offering back together, as if the wind was expected, maybe even invited. Then, as if you've served your time, she stands. Don't tell the philosophers I'm here, she says. They get fidgety when things don't fit on scrolls. Your eyes follow her, as she vanishes down the alley, her sandals whispering over stone. You're alone now, just you, the statue, and a breeze that smells faintly of rosemary and dust. You press your palm to the stone base, not in worship, but in acknowledgement. Something happened here. Something still happens here. You stand and move on. Your steps feel softer, like you're trying not to wake the gods. As the alley widens again, lantern light returns, soft and scattered. A door creaks open to your left, and someone dumps a bowl of water into the gutter. You nod to them. They nod back. That's it. Nothing more needed. You pass a shuttered apothecary, its shelves visible through a crooked pane of glass. Herbs, powders, clay jars with smudged writing. One reads quite boldly, for unpleasant relatives. You approve. The street tilts upward again. You follow the curve, your legs not exactly tired, but definitely aware they've been busy. You pause beneath a faded fresco depicting a goddess riding a chariot through a field of stars. Her paint is chipped, but her gaze remains fixed on the horizon. There's a small dish placed beneath her feet. It holds a single coin and 2 petals. Someone still believes in her, or fears her, or both. A cat slips by your leg. Not Ajax this time, a new one, fluffier, possibly more, judgmental. It pauses, glances at the statue and bows its head. See, you whisper. Even cats offer something. The cat sniffs unimpressed and walks on. And so do you. You leave the alley behind, wax rings and chicken feathers lingering in your memory. Another piece of the city tucked into your pocket. Another quiet secret that no scroll will ever capture. The alley opens into a courtyard, so gentle, so unassuming, you nearly miss it. There's no grand archway or marble pillar to mark it, just the warm flicker of lamplight, the scent of thyme and lentils, and the sound of a lyre being tuned with the same delicacy usually reserved for threading a needle in a thunderstorm. You step through. It's not large, barely more than a square tucked between 4 homes, each with shutters cracked open, like sleepy eyes. Vines crawl across the walls. One of them has made it halfway around a window, before giving up and sagging dramatically into a flower pot. In the centre sits a young man with his lyre. He plucks a note, grimaces, adjusts a string, tries again, slightly better, still tragic. He sees you and raises a hand. "Welcome to my disaster." You bow, solemn. "A disaster in Dorian mode, I assume." He grins. "Mixolydian, we've upgraded." Mainstream historical fact. Music was central to Athenian life, used in education, ceremonies, theatre and social events. Lyres, flutes and hand drums were common. Competence was admired, but perfection? Rare, especially after midnight. You take a seat on a woven mat as the player tries a new tune. It's ambitious. He winces again. From one of the windows, a voice calls, "That's not how the hymn to Demeter goes." He yells back, "Demeter is asleep." "I'm improvising." Someone tosses a piece of bread at his head. He ducks expertly. "See? Rhythm!" You lean back amused as another window opens. A woman, probably his sister, leans out and mutters, "If you play that thing any longer, I'll feed it to the goats." He plays a defiant arpeggio and sings, "Do goats appreciate art?" She slams the window. A few more neighbours emerge, some onto balconies, others to stoops. They're all pretending to be annoyed, but no one actually leaves. One woman begins snapping her fingers along with the tempo. A child, no more than 7, begins dancing in the corner of the courtyard. Eyes closed, tunic flapping wildly, like she's fighting invisible wind spirits. You turn to the young man. "You always gather a crowd." "Only when I play badly enough," he says. "Mediocrity is the glue of this community." Fringe tidbit. While the elite prized technical mastery in music, street musicians often leaned on repetition, storytelling, and humour. Some even developed local fan bases, earning gifts of food and wine, or just sarcastic applause. He shifts to a slower tune now, something soft, haunting, oddly familiar. A lull in the air follows it. Even the sarcastic sister doesn't interrupt. The child stops dancing and crawls into her mother's lap. A man standing in the doorway of the farmhouse leans his head against the frame and sighs. You close your eyes. Let the melody soak through. Then, just when the mood has dipped into tender nostalgia, the lyre lets out a twang so violently, off-key, it sounds like a sneeze. From a divine being, everyone groans in harmony. "You are doing so well," someone shouts. "It's the humidity," he protests. "The strings are emotionally fragile." Mainstream historical fact. Certain types of lyres, particularly those made with tortoiseshell soundboxes, were indeed prone to shifting pitch in moist night air. Ancient musicians frequently blamed the weather, the gods, and occasionally their instruments' sensitive feelings. The courtyard dissolves into laughter, the kind of laughter that doesn't chase the silence away, but folds into it, like an exhale after a long, full day. Someone opens a window and sets out a small tray of food, cheese, grapes, 2 cups of wine. "You look like you could use this," they say. You nod in deep, grateful agreement. The lyre player slouches beside you, sipping from the second cup. "You ever play?" he asks. "Only badly," you reply. He brightens. "Perfect. Join the ensemble." You both sit cross-legged, trading verses of an improvised song about a fish who falls in love with a comet. It's romantic, it's tragic. It rhymes galaxy with fallacy and somehow works. From one of the upper windows, someone sings the chorus in a surprisingly beautiful voice. A second joins in with harmonies. By the second refrain, half the courtyard is mumbling along. Historians still argue whether spontaneous communal music-making was a common part of Athenian nightly life, or just the stuff of literary nostalgia. Tonight, it feels real enough to be both. The song ends in a minor chord. The courtyard claps softly. The girl in her mother's lap is asleep. The man in the doorway nods and retreats. Even the sarcastic sister tosses down a small olive branch as tribute. The lyre player picks it up reverently. "My first offering?" You both laugh, sipping the last of the wine. Then the breeze shifts. You smell wood smoke and something sweet. Dates, maybe cinnamon? Someone lights a lantern near the ivy wall, and the light dances over the vines, making the leaves look like gold coins. You sigh. "Feels like a dream." "Most of Athens does," the lyre player replies. "At night, anyway. By day it's mostly shouting and figs." You stand. Your body feels slower now, more settled. Ready for sleep, maybe. Or maybe just ready to stop chasing the city and let it carry you for a while. As you wave goodbye, he calls out, "Tell the comet I said hi." You promise you will. The courtyard fades behind you as you turn another corner. But the melody, it lingers, winding through your thoughts, wrapping around your steps, soft as ivy and just as stubborn. Athens sings you forward. The melody from the courtyard still hums in your chest as you walk, quieter now, but persistent, like a song caught between your ears and your heart. You pass under an arch where 3 vines fight for dominance, twisting together like awkward dance partners. Beyond it, the city seems even softer, quieter, the kind of quiet that makes you want to whisper, even if no one's listening. And then you see it, a small temple, not grand, not gold, just humble white stone, tucked beneath the shade of a tall olive tree. A low wall surrounds it, barely waist high, and the entrance is open. No door, just 2 flickering lanterns standing sentinel like sleepy guards. You step inside slowly. The temple smells like oil and beeswax. Smoke curls lazily from 2 terracotta lamps near the altar. A few wooden benches line the interior, smooth with wear. Everything here is simple, devoted, still. Behind the altar stands a single statue of Hestia, goddess of the hearth of home, of quiet flames that warm without burning. She doesn't glare like Athena or loom like Zeus. She just watches, patiently. A priest, older, eyes puffy with fatigue and smoke, tends the lamps. He's humming. Not a song, just a note, a vibration in his chest that seems to hold the walls upright. You don't speak, neither does he, but he nods when he sees you. He lights another lamp. Mainstream historical fact. Hestia was one of the most beloved and often overlooked goddesses of ancient Greece. Her temples were usually small, her worship quiet, but in every home, every meal, every fire, she was present. A constant whisper of warmth. The priest kneels, mutters a few syllables under his breath, and rises slowly with a groan that suggests his knees have recently filed a complaint. He notices you watching the flames. Want to light one? You hesitate, then nod. He hands you a wick. You approach the sacred lamp. The flame dances as you get closer, as if sensing your uncertainty. You lean in, touch the wick to its edge. It catches, not like a spark, but like a breath, a flicker that becomes steady almost instantly. You place the newly lit lamp on the altar, next to others already glowing. Fringe tidbit. It was customary in some Athenian neighbourhoods to relight one's hearth fire from a public flame, especially after storms or quarrels, as a sign of peace and fresh beginnings. You sit on one of the benches. The priest does too, rubbing his eyes. Tired, you ask? Tired of being tired, he replies. A beat of silence. You don't look like the usual crowd, he adds. I don't feel like it either. Good, that means you're listening. You look at him. To what? He gestures at the flames. To stillness. To the city when it stops pretending. You both sit for a while, breathing the same warm, scented air. The lamps crackle now and then, but otherwise, it's the quietest place you've found all night. And then, a whisper. Not a divine one, a literal one. From a young woman kneeling at the far wall. She's muttering a prayer, barely audible. Her hands clutch a strip of cloth, her knuckles white. The priest watches her. He doesn't interrupt. She comes every third night, he says, prays the same prayer, leaves the same olive pit. For what, you ask? He shrugs. Something she lost, or something she's afraid to find. Historians still argue whether private prayer in temples was considered acceptable or frowned upon. Most public rites were communal, but behind closed doors, people whispered to the gods just the same. The woman rises, presses her forehead gently to the wall, and leaves a small clay bead on the ledge. Then she slips out, her sandals barely making a sound. The priest stands with effort, stretches, and sighs. You want to leave something, right? He asks. You reach into your sash. It's a mess of city souvenirs at this point. A folded piece of scroll, a fig stem, one grape seed, the strip of indigo fabric. You pause. Then from a pocket you forgot existed, you pull out a small smooth stone. Not valuable, not even particularly pretty. Just something you picked up near the agora earlier without noticing. It fits your palm perfectly. You place it at the base of the statue, right between two other nondescript tokens, a loop of string and a copper ring. Hestia doesn't blink, but she doesn't need to. You step back. The priest waves lazily. Safe steps. You nod and step outside. The air hits different after the warmth of the lamps. Not cold, just more honest. You breathe it in. It tastes like olive bark and the faintest trace of ash. Outside the temple wall, a family sits quietly under the olive tree. No one talks. The mother is braiding the child's hair while the father watches the moon. It's a perfect still life, captured in slow movement. You don't interrupt. Instead, you follow a path that leads away from the temple, your feet crunching lightly on gravel. The rhythm of your walk feels steadier now, like you're no longer wandering, but being gently carried. Somewhere behind you, the priest hums again. You round a bend and glance up. There's the Acropolis again, far in the distance now, still watching, still glowing faintly in moonlight. It looks smaller from here, less commanding, more familiar. And suddenly you get it. The temple isn't the heart of the city. The hearth is, the quiet places, the soft flames, the gentle voices that never ask to be remembered, but never really fade. You keep walking, no rush, no destination, just one lamplit step after another, through a city that never sleeps, but sometimes rests. The city has thinned. Fewer voices now, fewer lights, just the slow whisper of sandals brushing the road and the occasional bark from a dog who's half-heartedly fulfilling its guard duties. The stars feel lower than they did an hour ago, like they've leaned in to listen. Ahead, the lane widens into a crescent around a low building with whitewashed walls and an open courtyard framed by creeping jasmine. The scent stops you mid-step, sweet, floral, and just a little too perfect, like it was arranged by a goddess trying to impress someone. Then a voice. I told you it was twins. You inch closer. Two women sit side by side on a woven bench, their feet resting on a short stool. One is older, grey hair in a braided crown, arms folded in defiant wisdom. The other is younger but not young. Her back is straight, and her hands are busy knitting something that might be a blanket or a trap for a particularly large fish. It's hard to say. I told you it was just a wide belly, the younger says, looping the yarn around her fingers. Not every woman waddling through her 9th month is carrying two. Bah, the elder huffs. I know a double kick when I see one. That baby was training for the Panathenaic foot race. You hover in the shadows, not wanting to intrude, but they spot you anyway. Midnight wanderer, the older woman asks, squinting. Closer to 2, I think, the younger murmurs, not looking up. Mainstream historical fact. In ancient Athens, midwives were highly respected, often more trusted than male physicians when it came to childbirth. Many were older women with no formal training but generations of knowledge passed down through observation, superstition, and gut instinct. You approach, slowly. The older woman pats the bench beside her. You're just in time, she says. We're discussing the stubbornness of babies and gods. Any conclusions, Wardlar, you ask, settling down. They're both terrible at showing up when expected, the younger replies, but at least babies come out eventually. There's a moment of silence as a cool breeze passes through the courtyard. The jasmine rustles gently. Somewhere nearby, a cricket makes a tentative chirp, and then, apparently discouraged, goes quiet again. The older woman turns to you. You ever delivered a baby? No, you say. She shrugs. You'd be surprised how often strangers end up doing it. Last year, a potter delivered his neighbour's niece during a blackout. The poor man passed out halfway through, but still. Technically, he caught the baby. Fringe tidbit. Superstition held that certain times of night were more favourable for births, particularly when specific stars were in view. Some midwives refused to begin labour induction if the sky didn't agree. The younger woman pauses her knitting, squinting upward. Look at that! Moon's starting to tilt. The older woman hums. We've got an hour. Before it dips past the olive grove. You always say that. I'm always right. A pause. Then they both laugh. You glance at the doorway to the house behind them. It's dark, still, but you can feel something stirring inside. Something waiting. She's overdue, the younger says quietly. Worried sick. Husband's already offered sacrifices to 3 different gods. Artemis, Hera, even Hecate. At this point, I think he'd pray to a well-groomed goat if it meant his wife would finally start labour. I've seen it, the elder mutters. He tried to bribe the temple owl with cheese, which the owl stole and flew off with. They chuckle again. Then from inside a low groan. The women still. The younger rises instantly, setting her yarn aside, eyes sharp. That's the sound, she says, vanishing into the house. The older woman sighs and grabs a small bundle from beside the bench. Cloths, oil, a tiny carved figure of Artemis. She turns to you. You can stay if you want. Will I be useful? She smiles. Number, but you'll learn something. You nod, and so you sit. The air is thick now, not heavy, but concentrated. Like the whole city has focused itself into this one courtyard, this one moment. Inside you hear voices, calm, measured, water pouring, cloth rustling. The stars above you blink slowly, like they're holding their breath. Minutes pass, maybe hours. The older woman hums a lullaby, absent-mindedly. A tune from before melodies had names. You feel yourself swaying with it. Then another cry, high, piercing, alive. A baby, followed immediately by the sounds of exhausted laughter. Someone crying, and a very faint, "I told you it was twins," shouted from somewhere deep in the house. The older woman grins. Told you? She doesn't move, doesn't rush in. Just sits with you, eyes on the stars, rocking gently. They'll be busy in there, she says. We'll meet them in a moment. Best not to crowd the first breath. Mainstream historical fact. Birth was often communal in ancient Athens, family, neighbours and attendants sharing the event. Babies were typically washed, anointed and presented to the household gods within hours of their arrival. You sit in the silence. You think of olive trees and temple lamps, of philosophers arguing with rocks, of fig thieves and rooftop stars, and now of twins crying in harmony, breathing the same night air you are. The door creaks open. The younger woman steps out, glowing with sweat and something deeper. She nods once, then grins. They have lungs, she says. The older woman chuckles. Most babies do. Most mothers forget they'll need them. She disappears into the house. The younger woman sits beside you, sighing deeply. They're perfect, you don't doubt it. Fringe wisdom. It's said that if a child is born on a calm, star-filled night, they will always carry a little stillness with them, a piece of the moon, a sliver of Athens. You look up again. The moon is beginning to tip just as the older woman predicted, and the sky, still listening. You step away from the courtyard with the newborn cries still echoing softly in your ears. Like the city itself, has just been handed something fragile and new. Your feet move slowly now, not from weariness but from a kind of reverence. The night has become a tapestry of whispered stories, stitched together by olive branches, flickering lamps, and fig-scented laughter. The path ahead is flanked by low stone walls, half overgrown with ivy. The lanterns here are fewer, the silence thicker. The city hasn't fallen asleep exactly. It's just lowered its voice. You pass a small sign carved into the stone. Keep Pi Leon, the olive gardens. A gentle slope welcomes you, and soon the stones give way to packed earth. The grove opens like a sigh. Neat rows of olive trees stretch out ahead of you, their trunks gnarled and twisted, like old philosophers who've seen too much and said too little. The air smells different here. Cooler, green, a little metallic. You take a step inside. The dirt is soft beneath your sandals. The wind moves the leaves in a hush, like parchment being turned slowly. Then, rustling. Not wind, you freeze. A figure stands beneath one of the trees, leaning lazily against the trunk, arms folded, head tilted back. At first you think it's a thief, or a ghost, or some drunken mythological being finally clocking out for the night. But then he speaks. You're late, you blink. For what? He grins in the dark. The most boring watch post in all of Attica. You move closer, cautiously. His cloak is city-issued, dark brown, with a faint sun emblem stitched near the hem. A night guard, a very uninterested one. There's a watch post here, he gestures broadly. Technically, supposed to walk the grove, check for vandals, report any signs of owl trafficking. Owl trafficking? He waves a hand. Long story. One guy tried to start a petting zoo. Mainstream historical fact. The olive groves outside Athens were considered sacred, especially those tied to Athena. Some were protected by law. Damaging or stealing from them was a serious crime. Guards were often assigned to patrol the areas at night, although their effectiveness varied. He leans back against the tree, arms crossed. Anyway, I'm Erex. Who are you? You tell him your name. Well, your name. Congratulations. You've just been promoted. To what? My temporary replacement. You raise an eyebrow. He grins. It's simple. You walk the rows. Listen for trouble. If a tree starts moving, run. Why would a tree... Exactly. Don't ask. He pushes himself upright with a groan, stretches like a lazy lion, and yawns. You're not actually leaving me alone here, are you? He shrugs. There's a warm hearth and leftover stew about 30 steps that way. If you hear screaming, I'll jog back. Then he pauses, adds, probably. And with that he disappears. Into the trees, whistling a tune you almost recognise from the courtyard musician earlier. It's the kind of tune that doesn't care if it's remembered. So now it's you, alone, in a sacred grove. At night. Fantastic. You walk slowly at first, unsure what you're even looking for. Danger? Unlicensed druids? Rogue goats? Instead you find stillness. Olive branches sway above you, casting criss-cross shadows on the ground. You step around a low stone basin, half filled with rainwater. It reflects the stars in perfect silence, like a bowl of cosmos. You kneel beside it. There's a coin at the bottom. Maybe two. Someone made a wish here. Fringe tidbits. While fountains and temples were the usual wish-making spots, some Athenians believed that olive groves, especially ones near the city's edge, had a special listening power. If you whispered into an olive tree's hollow, your words might travel to Athena herself. You pick a small, smooth olive leaf and turn it between your fingers. It smells faintly bitter, grounding. You find a tree with a wide trunk and press your hand to it. The bark is rough, warm. You whisper something. Just a word. Maybe a hope. Maybe not even in language, just a feeling. The tree doesn't answer, but it also doesn't laugh or catch fire. So win-win. You walk again. Near the edge of the grove, you spot movement, just a flicker. You pause, crouch. Two figures huddle beneath a low branch, backs to you. At first you assume something shady. But then you hear it, snoring. 2 guards, asleep, one leaning against the other like a poorly stacked amphora. You approach quietly, not to scold, but to satisfy your own curiosity. One is clutching a half-eaten date. The other has a scroll tucked into his tunic labelled Night Shift Log, with exactly 1 entry. 9th hour. Owl looked at me funny. You leave them be. Historians still argue whether Olive Grove watch posts were enforced with any consistency, but clearly some were more nap stations than security details. As you turn to go, something flutters past your ear. A bat. It dips and dives, squeaking softly, chasing a moth through the trees. You follow it with your eyes and suddenly realise just how many are out tonight. Tiny silhouettes dancing between branches, playing their own midnight music. One swoops low, brushes your shoulder. You laugh, quietly. They're harmless. They've got places to be. You sit beneath a tree and let yourself rest, just for a moment. The ground is dry. The air is perfect. The snoring guards are providing background ambience, and the bats seem to be running late-night patrols anyway. Mainstream historical fact. Bats, while not beloved, were respected as nighttime dwellers. Some Athenians considered them omens, others thought they carried messages from Hades. Most just hoped they wouldn't get stuck in their hair. You breathe deeply. Let the grove settle around you. It feels sacred, not in a thunder and lightning way, but in a quiet, olive-scented, please don't step on the wish coins kind of way. Eventually, you rise from beneath the olive tree, brushing dust from your sash. The sleeping guards behind you murmur and shift, but remain deep in their dreams, perhaps imagining they're on patrol, or possibly wrestling that judgmental owl again. You slip away quietly, leaving the grove behind like a respectful guest. The air is different now, drier, with a faint metallic chill clinging to your skin. It's not quite dawn, but you can feel the weight of morning somewhere beyond the horizon, like a curtain trembling before it lifts. Athens is holding its breath. You move toward a part of the city you haven't yet seen tonight. There are no houses here, no grocers or poets arguing over raisins. Just a stretch of half-forgotten wall and low structures, more stone than wood, more silence than sound. And then you see them, the frescoes, faint, fractured, fading, but still clinging to the wall with stubborn beauty. You walk slowly along the cracked stones, trailing your fingers beside painted figures. Gods, warriors, women with trailing veils, musicians mid-step. Their faces are weathered. Some have no eyes, others are smudged into abstraction. But the motion remains. The feeling remains. You reach one panel where a boy balances on a dolphin, his arms flung wide like wings. The sea around him is just blotches now, but the joy that survives. Mainstream historical fact. Frescoes adorned many walls in Athens. Not just temples, but public buildings, fountains, even the homes of those rich or eccentric enough to want painted ceilings. Most are lost, but some fragments remain, ghosts of colour beneath centuries of dust. A breeze brushes your back, and you glance upward. Bats again, silent now, drifting overhead in the pale pre-dawn, slipping toward crevices to roost. One lands just above a frescoed doorway, its wings curling around it like a shroud. For a second, it looks like part of the painting. Fringe tidbit. Some Athenians believed that bats were sacred guides between dreams and the waking world, that they could carry whispered prayers from a sleeping mind and drop them into the ear of a god. Others just hoped they stayed out of their fruit bowls. You keep walking. The wall continues, curling around a small rise. You follow it up until the city spreads out beneath you again. Dim, soft, scattered with pockets of flickering light. This is a forgotten corner, a ledge with no name, a place that was once something official and now simply is. You sit on the ledge and let your legs dangle over the side. The frescoes are behind you, the city ahead. A breath in, olive smoke, bread crust, lavender. A breath out, dust, dew, stillness. Then behind you, footsteps. You turn slowly. It's a boy, 12, maybe 13, with a scroll in one hand and a lantern in the other. He looks at you, startled. "I thought I'd be the only one," he says. You smile. "You're not." He settles beside you without asking. "I come here to read." You gesture to the scroll. "What is it?" He unrolls it carefully. "It's about Heracles, but not the famous parts. It's the version where he loses his sandal and gets really upset about it." You chuckle. "That sounds relatable." The boy nods. "It's funny. Makes him more real." You both sit in silence for a bit. "Do you think they knew?" he asks. "Who? The people who painted the walls? The ones who made the statues? Do you think they knew it wouldn't last?" You think. Maybe. Or maybe they didn't care. Maybe they just wanted to be part of it, even if only for a little while. He considers this. "Sometimes I write things and then tear them up." "Why?" "So the words stay mine." You nod slowly. "That's strangely poetic." He shrugs, bashful now. "I think the gods don't want us to last forever," he continues. "Just long enough to notice something beautiful." You look at him. Then you both look at the city. The boy reads a few lines from the scroll, quietly, just enough to hear the rhythm. Something about sandals and rivers and Heracles sneezing. It's ridiculous and perfect. And then, as you sit on the ledge, you realise you're not looking at Athens anymore. You're in it, not the skyline, not the marble, not the myths or the tragedies, the real Athens, the laughter in the agora, the bread on the doorstep, the fresco with no face, the fig thief with excellent rooftop balance, the soldier who still dreams of his spear, the goat named Euripides, the bad poetry about comets and fish, and the boy beside you, reading aloud about a demigod with sandals and emotional damage. Historians still argue whether the soul of Athens was its democracy, its art, or its philosophy. But tonight, you know the truth. It's this, right here. Two figures on a wall-less hill, waiting for the sky to change. The boy's voice trails off as the final line of the scroll curls back into itself, and he carefully rolls it closed, like he's tucking in a sleeping child. For a while, you both just sit there, eyes turned toward the still-shadowed city below. Athens isn't bright, not like cities will be centuries from now, with electric glare and sleepless windows. It's more like embers, pockets of glow scattered across the hills, soft and steady, like someone has gently placed stars on the ground. "You should go," the boy says eventually. "Dawn's coming." You nod, but you don't move. He rises, pats his scroll against his palm, and walks off without fanfare, like a messenger sent back into a dream, leaving behind only footprints and one unfinished question. You remain on the ledge, and there it is, the first edge of sunlight. It doesn't explode, it unfolds. The black sky lifts slightly at the rim. Deep blue melts into dark lavender, and then into that hesitant, pale glow of a world considering rebirth. Athenian rooftops begin to sharpen. Olive trees catch silver edges. A rooster, finally confident in its timing, lets out a proud crow somewhere below. You smile. A breeze rises with the light, not cold, not warm, just a breath, like the city exhaling after holding itself in all night. Mainstream historical fact. Athenians mark the beginning of the day with the rising of the sun, Helios climbing his chariot across the sky. Temples, especially those facing east, would often receive their first visitors before the light had even reached the city's floor. You stand and stretch, your joints clicking in protest. You've walked for hours, and yet it feels like you've barely left the edge of something sacred. You glance back at the fading frescoes behind you. The figures are nearly invisible now in the morning light, ghosts receding into their stone. A dog barks, a cart creaks, a house door opens somewhere down the hill, and a woman steps out with a basket, blinking into the new day. And just like that, the spell begins to lift. Fringe tidbit. There's an old Athenian saying whispered among herbalists and poets, "The night carries memory, the day carries meaning." which is poetic for don't overthink dreams before breakfast. You take one final look over the city. The Acropolis now glows in quiet gold, stripped of its mystery but still magnificent. You can see the streets now, the rooftops, the temple courtyards, and even the edges of the olive grove. So ordinary in the sun, you'd almost think nothing sacred ever happened there. But you know better. The rooftops hold fig pits and footprints. The courtyards hold stories and breadcrumbs. The temples hold secrets in their cracks. And your sash? It holds dust, thread, and that little slip of paper you folded beneath Hestia's flame. You descend the slope slowly, the wind now behind you like a quiet farewell. As you move through the awakening streets, you see the echoes of the night settling into stillness. The storyteller's stool sits empty, a few olive pits scattered like punctuation. The lyre player's courtyard is silent, a half-finished song scratched into a clay shard near the door. Even the goat, Euripides, lies in the shadow of a shuttered stall, snoring like a hero who's finally won his war against grapes. You pass the tavern, now closed, cups stacked, lanterns extinguished, one stool turned over, as if someone left in a rush or danced too hard. You pass the temple of Hestia. One of the lamps still glows faintly, though the priest is gone. You nod to it. The flame nods back, probably. And finally you reach a quiet corner of Athens, where nothing much happens. Just a stone wall, a crooked tree, and a bench that looks like it's been waiting for centuries for someone tired enough to sit. You do. And from there, you watch the city wake. You see shutters opening, bread delivered, children yawning, pots filled, a woman lighting a hearth, her fingers graceful from repetition. And none of it is loud or glorious or poetic, but all of it is Athens, the real kind, the kind that won't be written in plays or carved into marble, but the kind that happens in fig pits and soft songs and babies born beneath the moon. You smile, because you are here for it. And now, finally, as the sunlight reaches your knees, you let your body sink into the bench. You exhale. It's time to drift, to remember, to rest. And now, it's time to let go of the night. The city has done its part. It's shown you its secrets, wrapped in shadows and starlight, carried by sandals, whispered from rooftops and fig trees, and temple walls. Let your breath slow. Let your mind float gently through the olive groves, where the branches still sway with your passing. Let it drift over the rooftops, where amphorae cool in clay cradles and cats curl beside sleeping philosophers. Let it follow the faint trails of laughter through the agora, around overturned carts and down alleys, where a scroll of justice sleeps beneath a cracked pot. Let it carry you past the stone of memory, the fading frescoes, the one-eyed statues, the small shrines with offerings only the gods could interpret. Everything is still now. The streets, the steps, even the wind has tucked itself in. Athens sleeps again, and so should you. Close your eyes. No more goats, no more fig thieves, no more awkward tunics. Just the soft lull of stars, now faded from sight, but still above you. Let the breeze be your blanket, the hush of dawn, your lullaby. You've wandered well. You've listened, laughed, learned, and leaned into every corner of this ancient night. Now there's nothing left to do. Nothing to fix, nothing to remember. Just rest. Let your breath match the quiet rhythm of the city. Let your body go still, and let your dreams carry you gently forward. Good night.